24th Annual Whistler Cup! Yeah!
Welcome to Shaw TV's coverage of the 24th Annual Whistler Cup. I'm your host, Vanessa Ybarra. Well, to this day, the Whistler Cup remains the largest juvenile ski racing competition in North America. And judging by this year's numbers, it isn't hard to see why. This year, over 350 of some of the world's top 12 to 15-year-olds converged here in Whistler to put years of training to the test as they battled it out in slalom, dual slalom, GS, and the mighty Super G. They may all come from different countries and customs, but for 4 days, these athletes' hearts and minds were united on one thing, winning a top spot on the podium and ultimately taking home the Whistler Cup. So, were the Europeans able to claim it for the third year in a row, or is 2016 Canada's turn? Well, that's for you to find out. Join us for the next 30 minutes here on Shaw TV as we highlight the racers, organizers, and parties that make this alpine event one of the best in the world. This is the 24th Annual Whistler Cup. Whistler Mountain saw a whole lot of speed and smiles the first week of April as hundreds of young U12 to 16 racers put tenacity and training to the test, rushing down the resort's world-class terrain. The event first began in 1993 after Whistler parent Max Meyer was inspired to have an international-style competition similar to Italy's Topolino Cup on home soil. Thanks to its hundreds of volunteers and organizers, today the Whistler Cup remains a top draw for aspiring Olympians or newbies itching for a big mountain experience. They may be ferocious and in some cases defeated on the downhill, but for this youth, the rest of the weekend is all about fun. From making new friendships, partying in the village, to seeing Olympic idols up close and personal, this event is one that will live on in these athletes' hearts and minds forever. Over a dozen races take place during the 4 days here at the Whistler Cup. But before any of these races can happen, it's imperative that courses are prepped to perfection. After all, one overlooked groove or slippery section is enough to send racers and their dreams of reaching the podium crashing to the bottom. But lucky for this team, there's a team of smooth operators in town who've got them covered. Meet the man behind the cat.
This is a conventional snowcat that we use for working on the flatter areas. For a lot of the race course work, we do use cats that have a winch to assist it for traction going up steep slopes.
Just as skiers and snowboarders are ending their day, Mike Stone is only just beginning. Mike's been working as a cat ski operator here on Whistler BLACKCOMB for almost 30 years, the Whistlerite laying down countless tracks for ski racing competitions.
I've worked a lot of ski races over the years, World Cups when we had them here, and the Olympics when they were here. And I still go in the fall and work at Lake Louise for the men's races. You have to be very deliberate with your preparation of the snow. If there's a fresh snowfall, a lot of times you have to clear the snow off the race surface itself, and you have to do that at a specific time. You want a good surface for the athletes.
Last night turned out good. It worked out good, so Rain and Mike both, it worked out great.
Mike is part of the large Whistler BLACKCOMB snow team who work around the clock, making sure every run is built, groomed, and maintained to near, if not perfection, for alpine events such as this week's Whistler Cup.
The jumps are all built, right? So all we have left to do is probably free Upper Dave. When we start back in November to make the snow, we have snowmakers, moving guns, making sure that all the snow guns are producing the type of snow that we want, which is quite wet and dense. As we get the snow made, then the groomers come in and they start pushing it around. For the speed event, the Super G, you like to have larger terrain features, so larger rolls or bumps and jumps. Slalom is basically just fairly hard, the most durable snow.
For this operator and his crew, the biggest challenge is Mother Nature, which is why the WB squad has close to a dozen snowcats and operators on standby at a time, ready to grab the wheel the minute the weather turns.
If it stops snowing at 2 in the morning, you go to work at 2 in the morning. It's more a mindset than a skill set, I think. You have to be dedicated to the success of the race and sort of be willing to do the finicky work that you have to do to make it work.
And it isn't just operators doing the finicky work.
So we're going after 75.
Meet Patrick, head of the Whistler Weasels.
Don't ski the line, push the stuff as far away from the line as you can.
This boss has been weaseling at Whistler Cups, World Cups, and a number of Olympics for over 15 years. Further down the mountain, he and his team is in charge of manually smoothing out any dangerous ruts, excess snow, or slippery sections that pop up on race courses.
The races are running at 45-second intervals, so they've got to get from one stage to the next in 45 seconds. It can get stressful, but it is what it is, it's ski racing.
As hard as this entire Whistler team works to fail-proof the mountain, this is ski racing. Crashes are bound to happen.
We recognize that the person that runs first and the person that runs last are not going to have an identical track.
All this crew can do is try their best to provide racers with the smoothest, safest run possible. For Mike, his hours and views may blur together, but being able to play an often overlooked role in athletes' journey to the podium makes this ride an exciting one.
You want them to have a good experience because they really are the future of ski racing. Everybody contributes.
Here's a little fun fact for you. Turns out Whistler BLACKCOMB groomers also sprinkle fertilizer, of all things, on the course races to help keep the snow compact. Well, the more you know. Well, while it may be all business up on the mountain for snowmakers, down here in the village it was all fun and smiles as hundreds of athletes gathered with their teammates to kick off the Whistler Cup in its annual parade. Now, along with the loud music and costumes, what makes this parade so special for racers is that for many of them, it's their first time ever officially representing their country. And let's just say there was plenty of patriotic pride. They're loud.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Oi, oi, oi!
They're proud. They're the next generation of Olympic ski racers, all gathered to kick off one of Alpine Racing's biggest weekends.
I love Whistler Cup because you can have lots of fun, you can hang out with your friends, you can meet lots of other people.
We got like people from all over the world getting a real taste of competition.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
And these youth are ready to party. From teams from over 20 countries gathered here in the Whistler Village alongside their parents, sponsors, and the prestigious Nations Cup to take part in the event's annual Friday night parade.
And I'm gonna hear that carnival band.
This year's spectacle kicked off Mardi Gras style. Masked fairies and tuba players, just some of the performers helping get crowds in the party spirit. Then, holding the event's precious cargo, Canadian Mounties officially began the promenade through Whistler Village, followed by a long stream of beaming racers, Whistler queens, and bright drummers, all happy to celebrate one of Whistler's biggest events. While the parade is always a fun time for these teens to party and socialize with other countries, ask them what they're looking forward to most this weekend, and they'll point up to the mountain.
I'm really looking forward to the slalom tomorrow. GS.
Competing slalom?
I'm looking forward to competing and just giving it my best, trying hard and just getting to the bottom.
Yay! Alpine!
After weaving through the village, parade participants flooded to the main stage. Well-known Whistler singer Rachel Tom then proudly performed the national anthem to the jam-packed crowd, including three-time Olympic ski racer Manny Osborne-Parody to close out the celebrations. This event marking the first day of an already unforgettable weekend. Manny Osborne-Parody and Mariel Thompson are just some of the Canadian national team members that return every year to the Whistler Cup. I gotta say, it's really cool to see some of Canada's best skiers return to the place where it all began. Pretty cool. Well, immediately after the parade, the athletes also stayed in the village to take part in the first night's award ceremonies. Who took home the hardware? Well, let's find out. The night's awards kicked off with the men's U16 Super G, Canada's Jamie Castleman placing third, Ben Richards from New Zealand taking home second, and Norway staking an early claim on the podium with Wilhelm Normanseth taking home gold. As for the ladies, Canada's Sierra Smith placed third in women's U16 Super G, followed by fellow Canadian Eloise Carl finishing second, and Norway's Marte Monsen nabbing gold. Next was on to the men's U14 dual slalom, John Profit from Canada coming in third, Chile's Nicolas Perozzi taking home a second-place finish, and Argentina's Tiziano Gravier took home the country's first medal of the weekend, claiming top prize. The last awards of the night went to the women's U14 dual slalom. Canada's Lauren Coper finishing third, Amelia Aranburu from Chile grabbing silver, and Canada's Emma Charton proudly owning the podium, coming in first. The Canadians may have narrowly defeated the Norwegians in Super G and parallel. As for whether they could do the same in slalom and GS, we'll find out the next few days. Coming up, meet two racers taking their skills to new heights. Plus, we speak to Mexico's only racer on the joys of flying solo. Welcome back to Shot TV's coverage of the 24th Annual Whistler Cup. I'm your host, Vanessa Ybarra. Well, to successfully compete in the Whistler Cup, it takes heart, dedication, and years of hard work. This year's racers, such as the one standing behind me here on top of the Dave Murray downhill, have logged countless hours training on both the mountain and in the gym to make it to where they are today. With such competitive spirit, it isn't surprising many of these athletes actually compete in numerous sports, including Whistler Mountain Ski Club racers Gigi and Jett. Turns out these two love trampolining as much as they do skiing. And while they may be torn between a love of two sports, as we find out from coaches, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. When she's not doing this, she's doing this.
I just love feeling weightless. It's so much fun to be in the air doing skills that you know you're gonna land.
If 14-year-old Gigi sounds confident, it's because she is.
One of my brightest accomplishments was coming first place at Westerns, which is one of the biggest tramp events in Canada.
For 4 years, the Whistler U16 ski racer has been splitting her time between racing and trampolining here at the Whistler Athlete Center. Sure, the two Olympic sports may look like polar opposites, but they're also more alike than you think.
In skiing, you have to have a presence of airtime in all your surroundings, and that's the same with tramp. And in competitions, you both need to have a sense of calm your nerves so then you can really perform in both.
That perfect pairing helped Gigi earn a 6th place finish in GS, the 2015 Whistler Cup. And turns out she isn't the only athlete juggling two sports. 2015 Western Canada Cup champ Jett Williams is also gearing up to compete at this year's Whistler Cup for the first time.
I'm excited. My goal is top 50-ish. Quite a few of them are also ski racers, and if they're not racing, then they're on the mountain in their free time. Any dual sport is good for conditioning because it works different parts of the body. So when you take off, lift and hold your stomach super tight. It's helped my strength and balance. Slow it down, lift up. Trampoline's a leg sport, same with skiing, so it helps my legs get stronger too. I just love being in the air and twisting and flipping.
Gigi and Jett are among the majority of the Whistler Mountain Ski Club's 160 racers who compete in other sports, football, basketball, and mountain biking among the most popular. Juggling competitions and non-stop practices may be tough, but also gives athletes a leg up on the competition.
Mountain biking, you're able to look at the line that you're running with the bike, and that's completely related to ski racing. Rugby, soccer, those are awesome sports because you increase your aerobic capacity. The kids that are taking part in other sports are for sure going to be the champions that we see later on.
Once the cup is over, these two's attention is going straight back to trampolining and making the Canadian national team. So, do they ever get tired?
Yeah. Yes.
Like most Olympic hopefuls, they'll rest when they get to the top. As for which sport that's in, we'll let fate decide that one. Speaking of the Olympics, alpine ski racing became an Olympic sport in 1936 in Germany. And look how far we've come. Pretty cool. To this day, the Whistler Cup remains the largest juvenile ski racing competition in North America. With such notoriety, every year, more and more racers from various countries flock right here to Whistler Mountain to show the world what they're made of. And then there's Mexico. U16 racer Ethan remains the only racer this year representing Mexico. And while you may think it'd be a lonely experience, for this proud Mexican, it's been anything but. Whether he's marching in the parade or gearing up on the mountain, it's hard not to notice 15-year-old Ethan.
I'm from Mexico. I live in the States, but I am a dual citizen. My mom is from Mexico.
Ethan is the only racer representing Mexico at this year's Whistler Cup.
Do you speak Spanish? That's usually people's first reaction.
The Vermont resident grew up visiting Mexico City numerous times. However, it wasn't until he learned about Prince Hubertus, Mexico's only current Olympic ski racer, that he too decided to represent his mom's country on the slopes.
It was really when I saw him, I was like, man, if I could ski for the Mexicans, I could go to the Olympics.
And so, he reached out to Toby a few years back to get the ball rolling. Luckily for this coach, this half Mexican speaks perfect English. Toby also coaches quite a few French and Japanese foreigners where he has to rely on movements to get the message across.
A lot of it is nonverbal. You take an athlete and you move them into a position that you want them to be in, and you try and say, you know, this is where you are, this is where you need to be. Ethan's gotten a lot better, at least since I've been coaching him.
Luckily for Ethan and Toby, they also aren't the only solo team at this year's Whistler Cup. Estonia, Saskatchewan, and Serbia are just some of the other men's teams with one racer. With plenty of spots to socialize on the mountain, loneliness is never an issue for participants.
I've made friends. It's just a really nice crowd.
Today, this proud Mexican's sole focus is on racing. After a few quiet words of wisdom,
Touchdown nice and easy.
It's time to hit the Super G, Ethan's first ever Whistler Cup run.
That was probably the scariest run of Super G I've ever done before.
He may speak English and he may live in the States, but for Ethan, being able to show the world what his other home is made of makes these memories that much more special.
I think it's really cool that I can come here and say, hey, Mexicans are okay at skiing too.
Shaw TV also did a special feature on an Estonian boy a few years back here at the Whistler Cup, so if you'd like to view that story and all of our coverage from past events as well, just visit the link on the bottom of your screen. Okay, well now on to day 2 of awards. How did this year's athletes do in slalom and GS? Well, let's find out. The women's second round of awards took place at the Fairmont Chateau Whistler dinner on Saturday night. Karolina Ketzlova from Czech Republic finishing 3rd in women's U14 GS, Quebec's Jade Bonville nabbing silver, and Canada's Ashley Campbell stood tall and proud winning gold. In women's U16 GS, Japan's Yukino Hatanaka earned a 3rd place finish, Canada's Eloise Carl nabbing 2nd, and Norway's Marte Monsen took to the podium once again, winning gold. The men's awards took place at the main stage, Kenshin Nakajima from Japan finishing 3rd in U14 slalom, Quebec's Peter No taking home silver, and Griffin Hansen from Canada nabbing 1st. As for men's U16 slalom, Norway continued to dominate the podium, Kaspar Kindum placing 3rd, Jamie Castleman from Canada claiming a 2nd place finish, and Norway's Wilhelm Normanseth once again earned a 1st place finish, wrapping up a full and exciting 2 days on the hill for Cup athletes. Coming up, meet one ski dad going the extra mile, and then the ultimate. Find out which country took home the Whistler Cup. Welcome back to Shaw TV's coverage of the 24th Annual Whistler Cup. Well, in any competitive sport, it's the parents who are the true champions. Every year, over 300 parents sacrifice their time to help make the event the best year yet. From signing in athletes here at the Whistler Mountain Ski Club, making sandwiches, logging race times as well, it truly is a 24/7 job. But like any selfless worker, it isn't just competitions these parents help out in. Turns out, with alpine ski racers practicing 3 to 4 times a week during peak season, these parents' weekends are packed, shuttling their kids from A to B. Add in also juggling a full-time job, and it's enough to make anyone's head spin. But according to one ski racing dad, the chaos is well worth it.
This car, we refer to it as the family mule. We've traveled all over British Columbia with the vehicle and accumulated 175,000 kilometers in, about 8 years.
Behind every Whistler Cup athlete, there's a dedicated parent or mentor. Case in point, Eric Konigsmann.
We're heading to Collingwood to the gym with Peter to join his brother Mark. We drive to the gym about 4 to 5 times per week. So what are you going to be doing at the gym today, Peter?
So I'll probably start off with some squats.
For over 10 years, this West Vancouver dad has spent every winter season driving 16-year-old son Peter to ski racing competitions, or in today's case, dropping him off to his regular gym workout. However, unlike other ski parents, this dad is on double duty. 15-year-old son Mark is also a U14 ski racer, placing 9th in slalom at the 2015 Whistler Cup, with Peter also climbing the ranks, the FIS racer nabbing 1st in Super G at the 2014 Mount Purdon Provincials. It's a talent that this dad can't exactly take credit for.
I never raced personally. I've skied all my life. Alexandra was the one who actually signed the boys up initially.
Eric's wife enrolled the boys in the Nancy Green Ski League when they were just 5 and 6 years old. A few years later, they started competing.
She really enjoyed seeing the boys develop their skills. She always said it was like ballet on the hill for her. Always behind the scenes, that was more her style. So, you know, whether it was chaperoning on away races, making food for kids when they had races.
I remember my first race at Seymour. I was going down and I heard my mom and dad cheering on the sidelines. I got a little distracted, so I stopped racing and went over to say hi. And I lost the race, but it was kind of a funny moment. They're always cheering.
Then in 2014, Alexandra passed away from cancer. For this devoted dad, there was only one thing to do.
I've been at it for almost 15 years, so I know the drill. We're headed up to CYPRESS, where we're going to be doing a couple hours of training.
True to his word, the tireless father of two continued to drive his sons up to their regular practices here at Cypress Mountain. Peter today gearing up for his regular slalom run.
A lot of hours on the hill, 20 to 25 a week. It's really not about the racing so much as it is about learning how to manage your time, being disciplined with schoolwork, and I don't think it's an accident that my sons are doing extremely well at school.
Today, the Cypress Ski Club has over 80 members, with an average ski season costing over $20,000, not to mention countless driving hours from parents. It's a sport that isn't without its warnings. However, for program director Raul, whose 3 kids have also gone through the ski club, the sacrifice is well worth it.
It's an incredible educational tool. Alpine skiing is a very difficult sport, you know, because all conditions are changing all the time. You never have the same snow, the same slope, the same setting. You have to develop a very strong personality. It's amazing how mature they become really quick.
As I was younger, I didn't really understand all the resources and effort that went into it. But now as I'm having more responsibilities and doing more things myself, I realized how long and how much effort he's had to put into it, and yeah, I'll definitely remember that.
Hold on!
For Eric, there's no denying the last few years have been tough and jam-packed. But like so many other passionate parents, there's nowhere else this ski lover would rather be.
Okay, are you all done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Let's get out of here. Go and get your boots off. The club has been like a family to us. I enjoy the whole scene. I like the people, the community. It's just the natural way for us to be. I've already actually gone so far as to buy Peter his first car, because the minute he gets his license, he'll be driving everywhere.
I'm sure Eric is one of the many parents looking forward to when their kids get their license. Well, don't worry, you're almost there. Well, switching gears now from passionate parents to passionate racers. Here at the Whistler Mountain Ski Club, these racers behind me are just some of the hundreds that have gone on to compete for the provincial and national team. Many of them also winning gold medals at the Olympics, some of them including Ashley McIver and Marielle Thompson. So what does it take to make it to the top and even one day represent your country at the Olympics? Well, Shaw TV spoke to some of BC's best to find out. She may have put these gloves on 1,000 times, but for Ella Ranzoni, today's gear up is a special one.
It's really exciting.
Ella is one of a few Whistler U16 racers who has been chosen to forerun the downhill course here at March's Canadian Championships in Whistler. There's no denying preparing to go down the same run as BC and Canada's best is an experience she won't forget, but it's also one that she's earned. The Whistlerite placed second in slalom at the 2014 Whistler Cup, as well made this year's Whistler Cup BC team for the 4th year in a row.
It's really exciting because it means I can have a better bib and have a faster track.
You guys, come on, up!
While all Whistler Cup athletes dream of being at the top of their discipline, Ella actually is. In fact, all of these alpine ski racers have worked their way up to being some of the best in the country. So, what does it take to get to the top? For four-time Whistler Cup participant, now BC development team racer Brody Seeger, 90% of it is mental.
Facing hardships and dealing with bad days is the best way to progress mentally. It's all about how you go into your next competition, your next training day, figure out how to reset and come into the next race day or training day with a good focus.
For Ella, her warm-ups begin with positive visualization.
I like to think that already I've finished and how I feel then, so that I know what I want to do to be like that. For some people, the mental side can get to them. They overthink it and then they screw up on the sections that they're really worried about. You need to be focused on what's ahead of you and not looking back at what's happened.
Close mentorships have also proved a valuable tool for the 15-year-old. BC ski racer Stephanie Fleckenstein among the pro athletes she's turned to for advice throughout the years.
I want to be like them when I'm older, so I like to see how they got there.
As for World Cup competitor Broderick Thompson and so many other racers, they credit the Mike and Manny camp for helping them get to where they are today.
It's a 4-day camp here in Whistler, run by Mike Janik and Manny Osborne-Parody, who are both ex-racers with the Whistler Mountain Ski Club, and they bring in kids from all across Canada. A lot of the participants are Whistler Cup U16 racers. So it's a really fun time. They get to see athletes got to the highest level of their sport, and they get to see the pathway maybe a little bit more clear.
Now that Broderick's gone and crushed that path, he now makes it a point to pass along what his idols taught him in order to help younger racers such as 15-year-old Miles climb the ranks.
I met Broderick 2 or 3 years ago. I used to put a lot of pressure on myself, and he just told me that at the younger ages you don't need to worry about all these things too much, because if you just keep skiing and having fun at that age, you'll be good when you're older, and that's when it really matters.
Anything you can help them with technique-wise or off the hill, on the hill, dry land, like I've done with Eric Gay and Manny, gives you more confidence to know that the older guys are doing that.
Today, Miles is one of BC's best. He and Ella may credit a positive mind and close mentorships for helping get them where they are today, but like all champs, it's nothing without a love of the sport.
There's not that much other stuff that I'd rather do on any day.
The speed, the air, and also the opportunities that it gives you in life. I mean, outside of racing itself, getting to travel, it's really fun.
Really, there's no limits.
Something with the snow, I like either skiing in it or just playing in it. I just love it. At the end of the day, I want to be dead tired knowing I gave it my all.
Already, this is Ella Renzoni. She is pushing this 116.93.
With the topic on champions, now is the time you've all been waiting for. After 3 days of competitions, which country managed to take home the coveted Whistler Cup? Well, let's find out. The third and final day of awards started off with women's U14 slalom. Canada's Emma Charton finishing third, Elizabeth Sullivan, also from Canada, grabbing silver, and Jade Bonville from Quebec nabbing top prize. For women's U16 slalom, Norway's Bianca Bakke-Westhoff took home bronze, with Canada's Eloise Carl claiming silver, and Norway powerhouse Marte Monsen nabbing gold. As for the men, Canada's Isaac Athens won bronze in U14 GS, with Nicholas Perozzi from Chile grabbing silver, and Japan's Ora Kimishina taking home gold. The final discipline award of the night went to the men's U16 GS. Ben Richards from New Zealand nabbing bronze, Norway's Wilhelm Normanset finishing silver, and first place going to Kaspar Kindom, also from Norway. Other hardware highlights included Quebec's Jade Bonville and Canada's Eloise Carl winning the Nancy Green Cup for Best Performance by Canadian U14 and 16 female, Canada's Griffin Hansen and Jamie Castleman earning the Dave Murray Award for Best Performance by a Canadian male, and lastly Team Ontario winning this year's U14 Nations Cup for most points earned by a team. Then it was time for the grand reveal. With Norway taking home all 6 U16 gold medals, the team won this year's Whistler Cup for the second year in a row.
It's amazing we managed to put together great results day after day. Just really happy with what we accomplished.
It feels good. It's good to be here, and we're really happy to win the cup. And yeah, it's a great event.
We feel great about winning this event. Kids done great this whole weekend, and It's easy to be a coach when the kids ski well.
I think most racers would agree no matter how much you try and stop and soak in the moment, the Whistler Cup never fails to fly by. Well, once again, a big congratulations to all of this year's participants and volunteers for making 2016 such a memorable year. That wraps up our coverage here on Shaw TV of the 2016 Whistler Cup. We hope you enjoyed our broadcast, and we'll see you next time.